Hello grades and learners! May this video guide you in understanding our topic, graphing polynomial functions. Here are our objectives. Given the polynomial function, determine the end behaviors of its graph, the number of turning points of its graph, the x-intercepts or zeros and their multiplicities, y-intercept, and sketch the graph of the given polynomial function. Actually, napag-aralan na natin lahat itong mga nasa first objective natin. Now, ang gagawin natin is we're going to apply itong mga natutunan natin in sketching the graph of a polynomial function. Let's have this example. Sketch the graph of f of x equals x minus 1 squared times x minus 2 times x plus 3. So, we will be following a series of steps for us to be able to sketch the graph of this function. The first step is first, we have to describe the end behaviors of the graph. So when we say end behaviors, we are referring to the behavior of the graph of f of x as x approaches negative infinity or as x approaches positive infinity. Now, to describe the end behaviors, we will be applying the leading coefficient test na napag-aralan na natin. So, sa leading coefficient test, we have to determine the degree and the sign of the leading coefficient. The degree of this polynomial function is 4. So, kung maalala ninyo, ang degree is the highest exponent of x if the given function is in standard form. Pero since ang polynomial function natin ay naka-factored form, so for us to find the degree, kailangan natin siyang i-expand by multiplying the factors. So, kapag minultiply natin itong factors na ito, we will come up with x raised to the 4th power. That's why the degree is 4. Now, the sign of the leading coefficient is positive. So, tulad nga ng sabi ko kanina, kapag in-expand natin itong polynomial function, we will come up with the leading term x raised to the 4th power. At ang leading coefficient natin ay 1 and the sign is positive. Now, balikan natin ang leading coefficient test wherein we relate the degree with the degree and the sign of the leading coefficient with the behavior of the graph. The degree of the polynomial function can be even or odd. Even, kung mapapansin nyo, pareho ng directions ang left hand and ang right hand ng ating polynomial, ang graph ng polynomial function. So, parehong pataas or rising ang end behaviors natin if a sub n or the leading coefficient is greater than 0, meaning the sign is positive. And falling naman if the leading coefficient is less than 0 or the sign is negative. Kapag odd naman ang degree natin, magkaiba ng directions ang magkabilang dulo ng graph. Kapag positive ang leading coefficient, falling sa left and then rising sa right. And kapag negative ang leading coefficient, rising sa left and falling sa right. Now, balikan natin yung example kanina. Since the degree of the polynomial function is 4 and 4 is an even number, so kailangan pareho ng direction yung end behaviors natin. It's either rising or falling. But since the sign is positive, therefore, the end behaviors we are expecting that the graph is rising sa left and rising sa right. That is, as x approaches negative infinity, the function approaches positive infinity. And as x approaches positive infinity, f of x approaches positive infinity. So, rising. Next step is we have to determine the number of turning points. So, kung maalala din ninyo, to determine the number of turning points, we have n minus 1, where n is the degree of the polynomial function. Now, since ang degree natin ay 4, so we simply subtract 1, so we have 4 minus 1. So, the possible number of turning points of our graph is at most 3. So, hindi dapat lalagpas sa 3 ang turning points natin mamaya. Third step is identify the x-intercepts or zeros of the given function and their multiplicities. Now, since ang function natin ay naka-factored form na, mas madali na nating mahanap ang zeros ng given function or x-intercepts. To find the x-intercepts, we let f of x be equal to 0. So, in that case, we simply equate each factor to 0. So, ang gawin natin is, isa-isahin natin yung kada factor. So, puntahan natin yung first factor. We have x minus 1. Equate natin to 0. So, equals 0. Adding 1 to both sides of the equation, o kaya, applying yung transposition. So, negative, ito, transpose natin to the other side. So, maging positive 1. So, x is equal to 1. So, the first root is 1. And pag sinabi nating x-intercept, diba, it is the x value of the point where the graph meets the x-axis. So, nasabi natin din kanina na ang f of x is equal to 0. So, we let f of x or y be equal to 0. So, the ordered pair is 1, 0. Next, let us equate the second factor to 0. We have x minus 2 equals 0. So, x is equal to positive 2. And the ordered pair is 2, 0. Next, we have the last factor, x plus 3 equals 0. So, x equals negative 3. So, it can be represented in this ordered pair. We have negative 3, 0. Pansinin ha, ang mga points natin, ang x-intercepts itong mga values ng x, and then ang mga y niya ay 0. Kasi itong mga points na to ay makikita nyo sa x-axis lang. Now, kunin naman natin ang multiplicities ng kada zeros or kada roots. So, kung maalala ninyo, yung napag-aralan din natin na nakaraan about the behavior of the graph with respect to x-axis, pwede nating malaman by simply describing or by simply identifying the multiplicities of each root. Now, kapag ang multiplicity ay even, the graph will bounce or will touch the x-axis at the given point. And kapag ang multiplicity ng root ay odd, the graph will cross the x-axis. Now, identify natin ang multiplicities ng kada root. The multiplicities would tell you kung ilang beses ginamit as a factor ang ating given. Now, puntahan natin yung first root natin, which is x equals 1. At ang x equals 1 ay nagmula sa factor na x minus 1. Kung papansin ninyo, ang x minus 1 ay ginamit twice as a factor. That's why the multiplicity of the root 1 is multiplicity 2. And since 2 is even, therefore, the graph will bounce, will touch, or is tangent to point 1, 0. Next, ang x equals 2 ay mula sa x minus 2 na isang beses lang ginamit as a factor. Therefore, 2 has multiplicity 1. 1 is odd, therefore, the graph will cross the x-axis at 2, 0. Next is x equals negative 3, at ang x plus 3 ay ginamit also once as a factor. That's why the multiplicity of negative 3 is 1. Therefore, the graph will cross the x-axis at negative 3, 0. Next step is let us identify the y-intercept. Pag y-intercept naman ang hinahanap, we let x be equal to 0 and then solve for f of x. Now, given the polynomial function f of x, lahat ng x ay papalitan natin ng 0. So, we have f of 0 is equal to 0 minus 1 squared times 0 minus 2 times 0 plus 3. 0 minus 1 is negative 1 squared. Then 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Then 0 plus 3 is 3. Then simplify natin to. Negative 1 squared or negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Times negative 2 is negative 2. Times 3 is negative 6. Therefore, our y-intercept is negative 6. In ordered pair, we say that the graph will meet the y-axis at 0, negative 6. This time, ang x value ng ordered pair natin ay 0 at ang y-intercept natin is negative 6. Next step is make a table of values para makakuha tayo ng iba pang points for our graph. Now, i-plug in na natin dito yung mga nakuha na nating x-intercepts kanina. So, we have negative 3, 0, then ng 1, 0, then 2, 0. Ito yung kanina na x-intercepts natin. Ito yung x-intercepts, tas diba ang value ng f of x or y nila ay 0. Then, isama din natin yung y-intercept natin. So, we have here the ordered pair, 0, negative 6. Now, mag-plug in tayo ng iba pang values for x and then solve for f of x. So, nilagay ko na lang dito is negative 2, negative 1, and then positive 3 para kompleto to. Okay, no? Tsaka, pwede rin kayong any values will do. Mas maganda siguro kung in between doon sa mga given na x-intercepts and y-intercept. So, ang gagawin natin to solve for f of x, itong mga values ng x, isa-substitute natin doon sa polynomial function. So, simulan natin kay negative 2. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3 squared. And that is positive 9. Then, negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. Then, negative 2 plus 3, negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. So, pag binultiply natin yon 9 times negative 4 times 1. So, the answer is negative 36. So, ang pangalawang ordered pair natin, isa pang ordered pair natin or point natin ay negative 2, negative 36. Now, try natin sa negative 1. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2 squared. That is positive 4. So, ito 4. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. Then, negative 1 plus 3 is positive 2. So, we have here, 4 times negative 3, that is negative 12, times 2. So, we have negative 24. So, pag nagsisolve kayo, pwede naman kayo mag-calculator para mas accurate, para sigurado kayo sa f of x, sa values ng f of x. Then next, we have x is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2 squared is 4. 3 minus 2 is 1. Then 3 plus 3 is 6. So we have here 4 times 1 times 6. And the answer is 24. Now, pagsamahin natin lahat ng results natin from steps 1 to 5 para magsimula na tayong mag-sketch ng graph. Now, let us plot the points na nakuha natin from these steps. So, simulan muna natin dito sa mga points from x-intercepts, no? So, simulan natin kay 1, 0. Ang x ay 1 at ang 0 ay y. So, dito natin ilalagay yung point natin. The next ay 2, 0. Ang x ay positive 2 at ang y niya ay 0. So, this point. And then, negative 3 is 0. So, ang x ay negative 3 and ang y ay 0. Sunod naman natin ang y-intercept represented by the ordered pair 0, negative 6. So, ang x ay 0 at ang y niya ay negative 6. So, nandito siya ang point natin. Now, i-plot din natin yung ibang points na nakuha natin kanina, yung sinolve natin kanina. So, we have negative 2, negative 36. So, negative 2 ang x, then negative 36 ang y. So, nandyan siya. And then, negative 1, negative 24. Negative 1 ang x, then negative 24 ang y natin. And then 3, 24. Positive 3 ang x, and then ang y natin ay positive 24. So, after plotting the points, ang susunod natin gagawin ay ang end behaviors ng graph. So, kung babalikan natin ang result, ang end behaviors natin ay rising sa left at rising sa right. So, ibig sabihin, as x approaches negative infinity, the f of x approaches positive infinity. And as x approaches positive infinity, f of x approaches positive infinity. Next ay i-connect na natin yung mga points by considering the multiplicities. Ito yung kinuha natin kanina na tangent, cross, cross, yung behavior ng graph with respect to the x-axis. Now, from this point, yung negative 3, 0, kung mapapansin nyo, ang graph daw ay magkocross. So, i-cross natin ang graph and then i-connect natin yung mga points na kasunod niya hanggang dito sa y-intercept. Next, after sa y-intercept, ang next na point na natin ay itong 1, 0. In this case, the graph is tangent to x-axis. So, ang gagawin natin ay magta-touch lang siya sa 1, 0. So, lumiko tayo, no? So, nag-bounce lang siya dito sa 1, 0, papunta sa next point na 2, 0 na magko-cross sa x-axis. So, tuloy-tuloy lang hanggang makarating tayo sa right na part ng graph natin. So, this is the sketch of the graph of f of x. Kung titingnan natin, using the number of turning points, we only have 3 turning points. Napasok naman dun sa result natin kanina. So, hindi siya lumagpas sa 3. So, in sketching this graph, we make use of the end behaviors, the concept of end behaviors, the number of turning points, the x-intercepts or zeros with their multiplicities, y-intercept, and some points na kinuha natin from the table of values. So, para mas accurate ang graph ninyo, pwede kayong gumamit ng mga graphing calculators or apps tulad ng GeoGebra and Desmos and the likes. Happy learning!